2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
What if my partner avoids sex with me? What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it.
It's a great question, Brannon. We're excited to dive into it. We've got an awesome guest today. We want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening with us. We just wanted to start with our review for the day. And this one says, I just wanted to thank you for the discussion. It really helps me to see and process what's going on. I just really appreciate the insight and help. You are amazingly gifted at what you do. Thanks. So thank you.
I'll tell you what you're not gifted at, Tyler. That's technology.
Hey, Brannon, you've got to understand that as part of my early recovery, when I started my own recovery, I purposely made myself as tech stupid as possible.
Oh, you succeeded. You did a great job.
15 years later, I'm trying to catch up, but it's taken me some time. I feel like I'm like, the equivalent of an elderly person when the internet came out, trying to learn how to use the internet. So
we're trying to load this on Facebook, and it was like impossible. So
I actually haven't succeeded at that yet. So
don't find this episode on Facebook. Listen to it on iTunes.
I'm gonna have to turn the reins over to you to try to get this thing started from now on.
No, I'm equally as bad as you are. So we are not the technology brothers. We're the therapy brothers.
Yeah, we're definitely the therapy brothers. It's funny that we're trying to do it over technology.
Yes. So
but it's
anyways,
not our forte.
We have, like you said, we have an awesome guest today, and so let's jump into it. So, Ange, I just want to hand it over to you. If you could introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us why you're here, and then ask us some questions.
Okay. Well, thanks for being willing to talk to me today. So my husband and I have been married about 16 years. About 5 years ago, some infidelities were discovered. We started going through the process of healing, or what we thought was healing. We went through a repentance process through our church. We saw a family counselor a few times. And over the course of a year, we went through that process. And at the end, the people at church told us we were good. And our therapist said, you're good. Everything's great. You're fixed. And so we went along with life, and things seemed a little better. And about a year after that, I made some discoveries that my husband was headed down that same path again, taking steps that were going to head him right down that same path again. And I realized we needed more help. Something was really wrong, because after we had been through that horrible repentance process, or good and horrible, but humbling, I realized that didn't fix everything and
Right.
that we needed more help. And that's when I luckily stumbled upon Ashlynn and the podcast, and that got us started. And I was able to reach out to Brannon, who fortunately directed us to Tyler. And so Tyler's our therapist. And so that's been about 4 years ago since that process started, and we're doing so much better now. Things are really good, and we're in a happy, good place. Um, and I would say most things are really doing well, except for we are still struggling with our sexual life. I feel like my husband is so afraid of going back to those behaviors and so committed to not going back to those behaviors that he's kind of shut that part of himself down. He just doesn't want to go there. I don't think he thinks it's as big a problem as I do. Um, but that's kind of where we're at and something we're trying to work through.
Were there those issues? Were they there before the recovery process? Before did you see these
Kind of,
tendencies?
kind of.
Yeah.
But there was an affair going on too, and a lot of acting out sexually through sexting and things like that. So I think he was getting those needs taken care of other places, which
Mm.
was affecting what was going on.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I thought when we started down this path of recovery, that would all just kind of fix itself.
Right.
And it hasn't.
Yeah. You feel like there's trust. You feel like his recovery is genuine, that he's not acting out on the side right now, and
Yes.
you feel fairly confident that that's happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're saying, okay, recovery's happening. As far as you know, he's just having sex with you, but he's really not desiring much sex with you.
Right.
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 Okay. Tyler, did you have any questions?
And that's not necessarily a change from the beginning of your marriage, but you basically thought that that was just because he was already involved in doing other things, and that because he was involved in other things, that's why he wasn't wanting to engage with you. And so now you're going, well, I am pretty sure that he's not acting out. So why? What's wrong here? Is there something wrong with us or me or him, or like
Right.
how do we solve this? Like how do we come to a consensus on what healthy sexuality is?
Right.
Does he avoid intimacy otherwise? So, like deep conversations, opening up about his emotions, talking about spirituality.
Sometimes he's really good at talking about spirituality. His emotions are harder for him to tap into. He doesn't
Okay.
usually initiate deep conversations, but he's getting better at going there.
If you initiate them, he'll try to hang in there and go there with you.
Yes.
Okay. Probably more so now that he's more in recovery than before, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if there's as you're asking the question, and I'm wondering if there's like a few different paths that we could kind of just explore here and see if any of them seem to fit, or could be possible things. So I'm just going to list off a few, and then we can choose if we want to go down any of these paths. All right. So the first one is that I mean, obviously the one that we would hope isn't true and that you're pretty sure isn't true is that he could just still be acting out and doing whatever he wants somewhere else on the side. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that unfortunately is a possibility, but
Right.
we pretty much know that that's not happening. So the next one is that he may be actually acting in some sort of the term that we've used in the past is called sexual anorexic way, where he's actually maybe starving himself of those feelings and drives in an effort to stay in the position that has gotten him to be not acting out on the side somewhere else. And so maybe he's working really hard to keep those things shut down, and maybe even with a good intention because he doesn't want to mess up again. That could be a possibility.
So you're saying, Tyler, you're saying he's in a state of control because he's wanting to avoid acting out in an addiction?
That's possible. I mean, that's
Okay.
one possible explanation. I don't know if that's true or not, but we see that from time to time where
Right.
the control is usually focused on an inward place that's driven by oftentimes by shame or fear, which is I don't want to mess up again, so I'm going to try to shut this part of myself off And in doing so, what it does is it turns into control inside the relationship, because now it's like there's that old saying that says the person who is least invested in a relationship is the one that has the most power. And when it comes to like your sexual lives, it's usually the person who has the least desire or press that would have the most power if this was going to become a power and control struggle, which we don't want to have happen in the relationship, right? So yeah,
Right.
that could be one thing.
And is that happening in the relationship?
Maybe a little bit. That some of that rings
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
The third path, and maybe we can come back and revisit this. The third path that's kind of going on in my brain is that perhaps this isn't just like a control thing in the sense that he's trying not to act out, but maybe there's some level of vulnerability or shame attached to basically to your sexual lives together, and that whether it was with you or anybody else, some of that stuff would still be there because of his own internal stories about, you know, shame or who he is or isn't, and how he part of his identity is wrapped up into that sexuality. And then the fourth one that I'm thinking of right now is that maybe he just truly has a different drive. um, Maybe he just has a lower desire, and it comes across as being off-putting or dismissive, or um, and I don't know, I'd imagine that any of those things could hit certain buttons inside of you that then cause you to have certain stories and feelings go off in your own brain as well.
Right.
So
And I with Tyler's 4 scenarios, I want to ask you some more questions to try to see if we can land on one of those. Um, how does he handle rejection? Does he
As
get
what type of rejection?
well, has he ever been rejected sexually by you? Has he ever made an
Probably not.
advance?
No,
Interesting.
probably not.
Now, why do you think that is?
Because it's not usually him that's initiating.
Right. What I'm wondering is why is he trying really really hard to avoid getting rejected? And so he's gotten very good at moving away from that shame, and just living his life so that he doesn't have to experience that. And so, you're the one that initiates, you're the one that does everything because he doesn't want to get rejected. And so that's why I wonder, when he has been rejected, maybe you can think about times he hasn't got a job, or times maybe one of your kids hasn't wanted to connect to him, or does he handle that okay? Does he handle those type of rejections okay?
So. I mean, it can be hurtful sometimes.
Okay.
I know he's a super competitive person, and when he doesn't win or do really well, that's very hard. That's very hard
Huh.
for him.
That sounds like my brother. Um,
yeah, he and I would get along really well.
um, okay, um, so he doesn't like to lose.
No,
Yeah.
nope.
Probably doesn't experience rejection much. Um,
I don't
I,
think so.
yeah, and I'm not trying to psychoanalyze him without him here.
Right.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of it for you. And does he have a past history of trauma? And you don't have to get into the details, but trauma where he's experienced rejection in his life
Um,
from his childhood or anything like that?
yeah, I think from his father.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would guess.
Yeah. Like
Um,
always wanted to please his dad and didn't feel like he was good enough or ever lived up to
yeah.
what his dad wanted.
Now I know it seems like a far jump to say, okay, that's now affecting your sex life, because that's about his dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if he has some pretty intense feelings about trying to please people and wanting to be good enough and wanting to win, then being vulnerable with intimacy can be overwhelming. It can be too much. And so it actually, a sexual anorexic feels a sense of control. They actually it's like anorexia. They feel they get addicted to that feeling of control where they can manage their life and deprive themselves of something because it feels good, because they don't have to experience rejection. And so I I would lean toward, this is my guess, because you said some of those tendencies were there long before the recovery process.
Hmm.
um, I would lean towards some sexual anorexia, and say that what's underneath that sexual anorexia is shame, and that shame is about feeling feelings of rejection because he's not good enough. So in an intimate relationship with you, it's hard to pursue that, although he's a sexual being. It's no wonder to me that he's acted out with other women, and he's acted out with lust and pornography. And do you know why?
No.
It's because it's less vulnerable than a marriage. He's a sexual being. He desires sex. He wants sex. All of that is inside of him as a man. But what he doesn't want to do is go through the work and the vulnerable process it takes to have real intimacy. So sex, he found, and he found it in a much less vulnerable way. And so I guess the bad news is, Ange, is for him to have a healthy sex life with you takes him facing a lot of more fears than it does him having a sex life with pornography or lust or whatever, right?
Or with another woman that doesn't have all the other strings attached.
Exactly.
I think that's yes.
Yeah,
Because I've wondered why would you pursue all those things with other people and not me?
exactly. Um, and I
I
would
think.
guess oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that if we're kind of narrowing this down a little bit and getting to the crux of it, oftentimes, and I don't know what it's like for you guys, but oftentimes when this is the problem, even when you do get to a point in your relationship where maybe you are going to be sexually engaged with each other, because shame and vulnerability are still in the bedroom with you, it it sort of shuts down creativity. It shuts down the ability to kind of explore with each other and and to be able to experience something together and to kind of have this like dance of intimacy, because shame is associated with fear and fear is associated with basically shutting down and protecting yourself. And so, oftentimes people will ask the same questions that you're kind of asking right now and say, hey, how do we make our sex life better? And they think that what they need to do is go out and go off the deep end into other places and have new novel experiences or do different things. But the secret to the best sex life in the world is safety and trust. And so if this is something that might be going on in your relationship, this is going to actually be pretty empowering, I think, for you. And it's something that we could, possibly work with him. But to know and understand that if that's in the driver's seat, it's going to maybe change how you look at your own approach in the relationship, and how to try to move the shame out of the bedroom and continue to move forward with trust and safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sounds exactly right.
It's interesting because it's that paradox. It's not your job to do his work, to help him fix his shame and his trauma. But as a partner, and this goes both ways, for the man or the woman, as a partner, it is our job to understand our partner and be aware of who they are, what their fears are. If it'd be fascinating when your husband listens to this, because we could be totally off, and he'll be like, Brandon's
Be
like
way
making
off.
crap up about me. That, but
he can come on next week and set us straight if he needs to.
yeah. But like if I have some major major trauma, or even little t trauma in my childhood about rejection, right? I don't like to get rejected. And then I get into pornography. I'm in the church, so I know that like it's bad, therefore I'm bad. My sexuality is bad. I get in a relationship, I don't want to be vulnerable. It leads to an affair. Um, Sex starts to equal shame. Sexuality equals shame. When I'm sexual, I'm a pervert. I'm broken. I'm not okay. And so now here's my wife wanting to explore things, be sexual, connect to me. I'm already worried about rejection on level one that has nothing to do with sex. I feel like I'll get rejected and abandoned. Now she wants to engage in this thing where I already feel broken and not enough, and like I've done so much damage with my sexuality. So now I'm being asked to do this really scary thing that usually causes damage. So I'm already worried that I'm going to be rejected. Now I'm being asked to do this thing that will get me rejected. Do you see what I'm saying, Ange?
Yes.
So like Tyler said, from your side, for you to understand that, it doesn't mean that you aren't honest with him about who you are. It doesn't mean that you're not empowered to be you and to be vulnerable in the relationship. But what does it mean? What can you do? What is in your control to empower you to be a safe person for him and to influence him to take those steps into vulnerability? What do you think?
Well, the approach I have been taking, which may not have been the right approach, is just educating myself a lot, learning
Excellent.
and listening to things and reading things. And I've tried to share those things with him, and he will sometimes do that. I can tell he's uncomfortable, and he's probably just doing it because I'm asking him to. But he will do those things if I ask him to. But I'm the one seeking those things out.
Right.
I think he's okay with with the way everything is right now, and he would be fine with that.
Yeah. It's what Tyler was saying earlier. It's like he has the power because he's the less engaged, invested one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that actually a good starting place to be. And I think what to follow up with Brandon's question, I'm going to kind of answer part of Brandon's question as to like, well, what does it mean as a partner now? If this is the case, and if this is happening with my own partner, and I understand it, it does a couple of things. And one of the things that it does is that first, it allows me to maybe change and look at my own narrative as to why my partner won't engage with me. So so in the past, like when you've been the one who's been pressing and pursuing, and you're the one who's experiencing more of the rejection probably in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship right now, what is the story and the feeling that has gone along with that for you?
Oh, I think what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Why were other people good enough? Um, just when so many other things feel good and right in the relationship, what is wrong with me there? Is it my body? Is it, you know, all those kinds of things?
Sure. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how shame is like this like quagmire that just wants to pull everything into it that it can, like quicksand, and it says, okay, well, he may not even know he's operating from shame, and yet his shame is now spilling over in his response, and now your shame is going, oh, that's me. Like I'm not enough somehow. I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not sexy enough, or he obviously wanted it with somebody else, so it has to be me as the common denominator. And now what's likely to happen is that I would bet that your response back is partially due to the shame you're feeling, which is inviting more shame and eliciting more shame. And it's like this back and forth sort of like interaction that starts to happen, where the very place you want to be connecting more is this place where it gets more and more awkward, and it gets more and more distant and more disconnected, and there's more doubt and more fear, and it just kind of like grows outwardly. And so when you start to understand this, you can start to, on your end at least, start to be the one who catches this and goes, oh, like this isn't about me. Like this is actually maybe about his shame, which means I don't have to listen to or believe or entertain the story that's naturally going to go along if I continue to entertain those things, right?
It's it's interesting because the opposite is actually happening, where your shame says I'm not enough. Why is he acting out with others? Why is he, he doesn't want to engage with me sexually. He doesn't want to engage with you sexually, Ange, because you represent so much to him, because you are so important to him, that overwhelms him. And 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 so he doesn't want rejection from everybody in this world. He really doesn't want it from you, right? Um,
Well, and if you add to that, Brannon, you put a couple together with a history where maybe inside the relationship there's been some disappointments too, sexually, where maybe he's felt like he hasn't been able to perform in certain ways, or he hasn't been able to please you, especially if he's got the background that you're describing where he's probably tried to find some of his identity through his sexuality. Now that instantly becomes just an addition to the shame. It kind of like fuels itself, and then he's going to want to withdraw more and more because he's looking at this arena now and being told, hey, it's time to step into the major leagues, bud. And he's over here going like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the minor leagues. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to do or how to please. And because it's even a misconstrued idea of what healthy sexuality is, he's over here thinking, okay, I got to have certain moves or certain things that I do, and that's not even the real thing here. The thing that's missing is that he's got to be able to come and engage with his heart. He's got to
yes.
come and like lay himself open the same way that you do in the relationship, where that's where the deepest part of sexual intimacy actually comes in.
Tyler, that's fine and dandy, and that is true. I absolutely agree with you. But we're talking to Ange here. We're not talking
Right.
to him, and so I think we got to get down to like, what is her play? Like, where does she go with this? Because I actually think, Ange, you're a step ahead because you've worked recovery in one arena. And what one thing I mean, when you started actually working a healthy recovery when it came to his addiction, what did you learn about your ability to control his addiction?
I have no control. I can only control me.
Okay, so that same principle applies here. Okay, you can't control him to go figure out how to put his heart on the table in the bedroom. You can't control that, but you do have control over you. And you're here today because you have a truth, something very important to you that is not being lived, right? It's you want intimacy, you want connection in your life, and you're feeling like it's lacking. Okay.
Yes.
Um, you can't force him to give that to you. But what can you do?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I've been trying to educate him, try to engage him. And I don't know if that's working or not working, or if it's just a slow process. I don't know. What
Um,
else can I do?
so what's your boundary?
Um, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
What's your truth? What's your truth when it comes to intimacy for you, independent of him? What's your value? What's your truth?
Um, I'm worthy of and I desire those things. I'm worthy of those things, and those are things that I want.
Okay, so you're worthy of intimacy,
Yes.
and intimacy is important to you,
Yes.
and something that working toward together is important for you. Is that
Yes.
that's all true, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you live that truth? How can you step into that considering the situation that you're in?
Well, that's where I'm kind of stuck, because how does it seems like it's a two-person thing. So how, as just a one person, do I do that?
So just as you,
Mm-hmm.
like you can't control him,
Right.
how do you take what is the reality of your situation and actually live that truth? Tyler, can you help her out?
Yeah, I think this was the second part of what I think understanding that this might be where he's coming from comes from, is it allows you to choose your response. And so maybe what's been happening here is that you've been going and grabbing all these books and saying, hey, look, read this, I'm going to fix you, like eventually you're going to be a great lover. And he's going like, uh-oh, like he's cringing. So I'm having this idea of some principles that come from one of my favorite books that we reference all the time, called The Anatomy of Peace. And in The Anatomy of Peace, are you familiar with that, Ange?
Yes.
I'd encourage you to go and review the pyramid of influence. And that's the pyramid of influence is all about, how do I, in the context of my relationships, invite things to go right? And it starts with, instead of teaching and correcting at the top, way down at the bottom, it says, number one, I need to have my heart at peace, which means I need to see myself and my partner in this case as equals, because we're human beings. And then it starts to build up from that, and it says, before I ever get to teaching and correcting, I need to be able to learn about this person's world. I need to become curious with actually really what's going on with them, and what their feelings are, what their desires are. Have these discussions, be curious with those things. I need to be able to be connected to the people around that person, and to cultivate relations with people around that person. And then I start to move up the chain, and as I build this relationship, as there's this like safety that is going on in the relationship, then I can maybe start to teach and educate, and then maybe correct behaviors. But if I haven't put the foundation down first, it actually fuels the very thing that I don't want. We get stuck in this thing called the collusion diagram, where I'm now inviting him to do the thing I don't want him to do. His response is inviting me to do the exact same thing that he doesn't want me to do. And then it's
But
this
Tyler,
cycle.
I wanna ask you, because I actually love this, what you're talking about, and it is effective and it works. But I want to ask you. So let's say my wife refuses to have sex with me for years. Like there's no sex. Um,
That would suck.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
that would suck. So you're telling me that my heart needs to get at peace. So does that mean that I smile and I pretend like I'm okay with that?
No, it's not putting on a happy face. It's actually truly from an inside out. This is about living with integrity too. This is getting, I have to start to question how I'm actually seeing my partner in this scenario. Am I seeing him as less than and broken? Or am I seeing him as better than me and I'm not good enough? And what I have to do is I have to work to a space where both of us are being seen from the eyes of, we're human. Like, I have my frailties and weaknesses. He has his frailties and weaknesses. I still choose to love him. He's still choosing to love me in this case.
But
Um,
choosing to love me, it means in in order for my heart to be at peace does not mean that I surrender my truths.
no, no, of course, no, of
Not
course
at
not.
all.
Like, yeah, it's not giving up. In fact, it's actually trying to bring somebody to the table to fight for those truths. So, it's like, if I have, okay, so let's take your example for a minute. Let's break this down a little bit further. Okay. So
Okay.
your wife hasn't had sex with you in years.
Right. That
And of naturally you're battling all of your fear and your
it's bringing up all my
rejection.
shame, all my
You got
stuff, all my
physically, you're struggling, you got blue balls, like it's just like terrible for you,
yes.
right? Okay. You're gonna have a hard time having your heart at peace, because that's the natural tendency, is to let your heart go to
My
war and say,
emotions are everywhere. Just with war, I mean, the resentment is just so strong.
yeah, you're resenting your partner, you're feeling like you're not
Right.
enough, it's back and forth, it's all over the map.
I'm trying
Y-
everything. I'm trying to guilt trip her. I'm trying to be extra nice. I'm trying,
Yeah.
like, I'm desperate. I'm acting out in desperation for connection,
Right. That's all heart at war stuff.
but
And
I'm a victim, aren't I? Because she won't have sex with me.
well, yeah, and if you stay there as the victim, then you'll continue to get what you're not wanting, which is more
Yeah.
and more disconnection. Because whether or not that's true, number one, I'd back up on that, Brannon, and say, just because you're married to somebody does not entitle you to sex with them. And so if you're the victim, in some sense, there's some level of entitlement that seems to be inherently put into that place of being the victim. Um, so I would say that in your scenario, you can feel like the victim, and maybe there's even elements of it that could leave you feeling justified because you're sad or your feelings are valid. But at the end of the day, you're not a victim.
Okay.
Um, so so what I have to do is I have to go into my, sounds so backwards, but I have to go into myself, and I've got to make peace with myself. I've got to make peace with the stories that are going on inside of me about myself and about the other person. And I have to remove the judgment out of all of that story. And I have to strip it right back down to, that's a person. I'm a person. And when I'm there, then I can step into my relationship, and I could see like in Angela's case, I could see her going into her relationship and saying, hey, so and so, husband, like I want to share some things with you. I know that this discussion is really hard for you. I can imagine that there's a lot of feelings that come up. I need to say these things to you because I want things to be better in our relationship, and I want us to be able to work towards some things. Um, and then share those truths that Ange just lined out,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, we get
And
it
then
back. We
what's
we,
that?
usually, we usually get it backwards, where we go for self-protection. We go for, I feel all these emotions, so partner, you better fix this so that I don't have to feel these emotions.
Yes,
Um, and,
it's
and
about make me feel better instead of what am I going to do to help things go right?
right, but it feels backwards because you're kind of, in some ways, you're saying to Ange, you're saying you need to change you, although she's the one getting rejected, right? And she's the
Yeah,
one possibly dealing with a partner with sexual anorexia. Um, and
but
and how
that's
does it?
the okay. Go ahead, Brandon.
Ange, I totally agree with Tyler. I hate to tell you that. Um, but how does that sit with you?
Um, I'm actually okay with that if I knew what to do. I just need some practical steps. I know I have to own my part in things, and I can only take care of myself. I can only work on
Yeah.
myself.
So here's the thing. This is what I see, practical steps wise. Um, what Tyler said is where you can start, is get your heart at peace. Figure out what that means. How do you get yourself to a place of compassion for him, understanding his pain, understanding his fears when it comes to intimacy, and really, really empathizing with that with him. That's something that you can do, and I'm sure you've learned a lot about empathy and compassion. Now, it's really hard to have compassion for somebody that you feel like is in the process of hurting you and rejecting you. It can be difficult. What are you thinking?
Um, I just, it's not that hard to have compassion, because sometimes I
Awesome.
think these things start when people are kids. And if you look at it that way, I mean, how can you, if these things start in your childhood, you have to have compassion for that child that went through whatever
And
that's led to where they are now.
you're healthy enough, I can say this to you, that this does not have anything to do with you. This is all about his shame and his childhood and his trauma. And if you can get yourself there and see that inner child inside of him who's scared and struggling, and not take it personally, then you can have that compassion. Okay. So that's like step one. This is what Tyler was talking about, getting your heart out of war to have that compassion. Step two is living your truths. So if that little child over there who is hurting says, you know what, forget you, I don't care about you and what you want and what you need and what your truths are in our relationship, you need to come back to you and say, okay, that's the reality of my relationship right now. Where do I go with that? And what are my options? Um, how do I accept that? Do I not accept that? Will this relationship last long term? Can I live authentically and honestly in it?
Are
If you,
you telling Ange to abandon the little child?
if I would say that abandoning that little child would be good for that little child if you did it in your truth, right? If your gut said, I
Explain
real
that.
I realize that he's not gonna actually face this sexual anorexia or whatever it is. He's not gonna deal with it. I probably won't have intimacy and connection that I really feel strongly that is an important part of my life. Um, so I need to have a boundary. You will enable him if you don't address it in your truth. Now, if you go to him and try to control him and force him, then your heart's at war and you're in the whole dynamic of it all. But if you go to him authentically and vulnerably and say, this is I, if you want to be married to me, I need a partner who's willing to actually be proactive in his own recovery, in his own shifting, so that he can show up as a man who can be vulnerable with me. I need that. And I need it to the point where I'm ready to stand in that truth, no matter what the consequences are. And that does put the onus back on him to decide. Like, he can say, yes, I want a marriage with you, or no, I don't. But at least he knows who you really are, right? And that can be terrifying. It can be scary.
Yeah.
But that's an important part of the process here. And so, because recovery from sexual anorexia, just like sexual addiction, is absolutely possible, but it can be really hard. And so, it you can do a ton of relational work with this. You can go to Tyler for therapy or other couples counselors. They can do EFT. They can work on intimacy. It probably won't fix it, because what needs to be addressed is that little boy who's hurting. And so his own individual trauma work will release some of these bonds and that are holding him hostage to connect to you. And that's where the focus needs to be. Now, you can't control him to go do that hard work, but you can be the healthiest partner you possibly can be, where you're not enabling him, you're believing in him, you're sending good energy his way, and hoping that he decides to actually work a recovery there.
And offering the invitation. That's really what the boundary is in this case, is it's
Yes.
actually, which, why I wanted you to clarify abandoning the little child. It's like the boundary is the invitation for him to step in. It's it's saying, look, I really am here. And did you hear how Brannon said it? Like, I'm leaning forward saying, I'm here. I see you. I know how hard this is. Here's my truth. This is what I believe is possible. And then the boundary gets set and he's left with this space to go, oh, like, I don't have to be the victim, or I don't have to believe this story that I'm not enough, or like, and and I believe that just based off of the story you've told today, I believe you got the kind of man who's going to step into that. It
So,
sounds like he's not afraid of hard work. And so he's now being offered this opportunity to step in and step up. And it's coming truly from a place of compassion and understanding instead of a place of pain and shame.
Mm-hmm. Is this making sense for you, Ange?
yeah, I'm just getting
Yeah.
a little emotional.
Yeah. What's happening? What are you feeling?
um, we've just done so much hard work to get where we are. Um, I just don't want to abandon this. We have worked so hard to get where we're at. So, and I know it can be better than it is. I know it's good where it's at right now, but I know it can be better. So I guess I'm hoping he wants to put in the work to be better and not just be good enough.
Well, what I hear is like you've fought you guys have fought your way out of hell,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not in hell anymore. But you're not in heaven. It's like good. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
if you can fight your way out of hell, then you can fight your way out of where you're at now. Um, and a lot of the principles that you've learned in recovery are the exact same principles that will apply to this issue as well. They're just you know overcoming your own shame, being boundaried, being honest, being compassionate, him owning his own stuff. But it won't get addressed unless here's the hard part. It has to get a little bit worse before it gets better. You've got to step more into this conflict with him, and it doesn't have to be with your heart at war, but more into this conflict because to be honest with him, like, this is not working. This does need to shift. I'm not just going to complain about this. These are not just words. Like, this is very important. This does need to shift. So that will cause some friction. It will cause some conflict. So
I think the one thing that you have going for you with that emotion that's coming up too is that because of what you've been through, I think you said earlier today, you actually do trust him in some ways, probably more than you have in a long time.
Yes.
Right. And so while there is that fear, there's some vulnerability in doing what the things that Brannon just outlined. Um, you have a track record now that has you trending in the right direction. And maybe you've just hit the next plateau and the next challenge, and that's kind of how life is. It's designed to be that way, but you also have some history now that's going the right direction that says, I've done a ton of work myself. I know he's done a ton of work himself. I don't think he's going to want to be that invested and just give it all up either, especially if he knows that there's a truth that's worth fighting for. And especially if he's a man in recovery, becomes the kind of guy who really wants to tune into his partner and provide for her. And so if he's genuinely working his recovery, there's going to be that piece of him that's going to be called to action. And so I think that fear, while it's valid, because that's the thing with these things, is there's never any guarantees. The odds are in your favor. And as Brannon was talking, he just mentioned, this idea of climbing out of hell, and it goes along with this concept that we've been talking about personal accountability, even when it's not always your fault here in the situation. And a lot of you guys who are listening have heard this before, and Angie probably heard it before, but there's a poem called Invictus that says, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And this is the point that I think we've come to today, is that you are, Ange. Even when it's not your fault, you're still the master of your fate. You still have control over your choices to help things go right. And as hard as that is to hear, it's extremely empowering if you think about it.
I agree.
Tyler can just whip off the poetry, like, he gets that from our dad.
Did you see Brannon? If you guys are watching this, you should have seen Brannon start to smirk when I started to quote it.
I love that poem, though. It's amazing. Just a couple quick resources as we wrap up. There is on the Betrayed, the Addicted, and the Expert, there's an episode about sexual anorexia you might want to check out. I don't know if you've listened to that yet.
Yep, I have.
There's a book called Sexual Anorexia by Patrick Carnes. Could shed some light. It's kind of rough reading, but it's one of the only resources out there about sexual anorexia. Whether you want to label it as sexual anorexia or whatever, but just to understand that there's some control issues there with sexuality. The other thing that comes to my mind is Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. It talks a lot about inner child and trauma. So it's written for the person who has the trauma, but it could help you understand your husband better. It could help you understand you better. So there's some resources to start with. You're awesome, Ange. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being vulnerable. I so appreciate you asking such tough questions and letting us go there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ange.
Thank you,
we'll see ya.
Tyler.
See ya.